Good evening, one and all. Good day, guten Tag, or wherever you are in the world. Buongiorno. Yes, we are here live broadcasting from sunny Worcester. And a lot of you will be watching this on replay because I appreciate a lot of you can't make it live at this particular time. So I'm going to be going through a number of things, and also those who are on live can ask questions as we go along. But also, you can ask the questions in the comments if you're watching it on replay. And all that I ask is that it's not mandatory, but it'd be fabulous if you could make a donation for Prevent Breast Cancer. I'll be doing the Camino. Yes, I'll be talking you through what's been happening over the past few weeks, because you may have seen some of my YouTube shorts. Great news with regards to my recovery from the both Achilles injury. So I'll give you an update on that. But at the moment, it's all go for the Camino, 130-kilometer trek across Spain to Santiago de Compostela. So it's a long walk, but I am confident that the rehab will work. The podiatrist gave me the all clear last week, which I'm very grateful for. And I'm now just doing a bit of slow runs, runs. I don't know how you call it. Good evening. I'm very good today. So yes, I'll be picking up questions as we go along. So if you are live, be sure to say hello and where you are from and what interests you or what you're going to be asking. So I've got a few things that I'm going to be going through, but I've got to give a big shout out to everybody. Big thank you. So many new subscribers arriving to my channel over the past couple of months. We are now coming to an auspicious 5,000 subscribers. I know long ago I wouldn't even thought of that. And there was a period, especially during lockdown, where I was having what I call negative growth, where I was getting less people subscribing than were actually leaving. Yes, I know it's hard to believe. But right now I think we're about 4,800. So a couple more hundred. And we'll be up to 5,000. So please do share any of my content amongst your friends, family, runners, non-runners, anything you think that'd be of interest to them. Share my videos with them and maybe encourage them to subscribe. So at the moment now, with my Camino, because as I say, this is all for Prevent Breast Cancer. So the Camino, this is the symbol, the shell, because we're in reverse here. I'm trying to work out, oh, is it there? Is it here? So here, where is it? Here, yes, it's the shell. So people wear the shell. This is sort of a sign of the Camino itself. So at the moment, I literally just passed, it's 50% of my target of 1,900 at the moment. And that's what it is at the moment. But I'd love to beef it up, after you've watched this video, or those watching live. It'd be great to get up to about 55%, 60%. That would be brilliant. And five favorite running shoes. Great question. I'll make a note of that and I'll come on to that as we go along. Have you made a donation? That's the big question. So yes, please do. I encourage you to make a donation. So whilst I write down the 5 favorite shoes question, I'll have a ponder and think about that. I think a lot of people, as we've been progressing, and obviously with the injury, a lot of people have a question of, and I often see these videos where a lot of people want to run faster, which is great. But they want to run for longer or faster for longer. And I've seen some great titles where it says how you can run faster, longer without tiring, which sounds utopia, doesn't it really? So I'll be covering a little bit about that. Also, in terms of what I do before and after every run, which I don't really cover much on the videos because I almost take it for granted, rightly or wrongly, that you all know what you're doing, And but it's quite apparent that those who don't subscribe to this channel, some may not know what they're doing. So I'm going to go through some of those in terms of what I do that helps reduce the risk of injury. I believe there's nothing in this world that stops anyone from getting an injury. I don't believe a such thing. You can leave a comment whether you agree or disagree. Nothing stops injuries. Injuries just happen. It's not part and parcel of running. Sometimes they can happen and you can recover quickly. Others could be long term or whatever. But I don't believe, I see these things, what they say, bulletproof yourself from getting injured. I think when you're pushing, pushing to the limit, both in speed and distance, endurance, it does make us susceptible to injuries. So we always take precautions, and some of the things that I'll do, I'll cover that help reduce that. But right now, in terms of the past few weeks, you would have seen that, and the latest video was Dark Times, it was called. And yeah, it's not been easy. Some of the nights, mornings, I sort of wake up and feel sometimes a bit lost, so to speak. And doing these live chats has been great. You would have seen Kathy McCourt last week, Alistair Walker previous weeks. So chatting with you guys, going to park runs and volunteering and chatting with people is great. And I've been going to some of the local races and supporting Mac on the Wild One, who unfortunately had to do the whole marathon distance on his own because I was injured at the time, and also the Worcester 10K. But there's a couple of big races I've had to withdraw from, and it's not good. And I got reminded of one of them when a particular bib arrived earlier this week. This is the bib. Can you see that? Yes. Oh, here, Great North Run. So it's very disappointing for me. So here's my bib. Yes, with the fast one. So I was going to be pacing that run. It's very disappointing. Heartbreaking, you could say, but I'm trying to keep things in perspective. There's always next year. Yeah, so it's not the end of the world, but it can be quite challenging at times. Good evening, Muffy. And hello, Nicola. Media City next week. Oh, any tips? Oh, Nicola, yes, I'm sure I have lots of tips. And hello, yes, Muffy. To all of you, I would encourage you to make a donation to the link in the description, also in the Chatty Adventures. I've got some great tips for the 5K, so I'll be going through those as well. So 5K tips. The number 5 seems to be pretty prominent, and at the moment now there's 5 people on live, so we'll go with 555. So 5K tips. So are you, obviously the question, Nicola, are you looking for tips on race day, or are you looking for tips for training for a 5K in general, or preparations? You see lots of things in there. A lot can go on during race day, and whether it be a 1K all out, I call it eyeballs blazing, busting speed, or whether it be a 5K, whether it be road race, park run, and or 10Ks, road races, and so on. But in terms of running faster for longer and not tiring, the key thing that I would say for all types of whatever runner that we are, is working on what we call aerobic base and building our aerobic base. And it's very essential that we have a good aerobic base before we start hitting on any particular specific training type, what I call sessions, which could be speed sessions, hill sessions, all that type of stuff. So sessions. And yes, Nicola, I got that question. Race day. So the tips on race day, I'll make a note of that. Yeah. So race day. So you can run your fastest. Excellent, Nicola. I've got some top tips there, and they've come from some top runners from around the world who run some very fast races. In fact, some of them are national champions, some are world champions. So I'll be sharing that info with you a little bit later. But the faster, longer, not tiring. It's all about aerobic base and the training runs. I mean, there's so much information out there that talk about doing particular types of sessions. It's all about easy runs. You often hear zone 2, but sometimes, depending on your level of fitness, zone 2 might be too fast as well. So talk about zone 1. There's certainly on Twitter, there's an account, Alan Cousins has got an account there, and he shares so much information, and he always talks about the base. In fact, there's a song about that, isn't it? It's all about the base, no worry. And running is no different, whether it be a 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon. It's all about having the right base. I believe maybe even for a 1 mile, 1K, you need some base, but not as much as the endurance distances, what I would regard as, 3 miles and beyond. Yeah, so 5K and beyond, I would say, in endurance. So building that aerobic base with easy runs, but also with walking. And I do love walking and that type of stuff. Again, it helps whilst your heart rate might not be going high. It helps with all sorts of mechanisms, mechanics of our body. And that's the kind of stuff that helps us in terms of be able to run faster, because to build the base, we have a platform and obviously physically the platform starts with our feet. But in terms of fitness, we need a particular base. So we work on the base, build the base, and then on that we can add building blocks in terms of various speed and specifics depending on the type of race that you're doing. So hopefully that helps in terms of, and you don't tire because you've got a good aerobic base, provided you run it at an easy pace. And I certainly know Jack Daniels, not the drink, but Jack Daniels, the coach. He's got all sorts of videos and he talks about its conversational pace. So conversational pace, where like I'm talking with you right now, if you can't converse with anyone or yourself, often that's why I run with the camera. I haven't got my camera, but same phone. I'm chatting to that. If I can't comfortably talk to it, I'm going too fast. Yeah, does that make sense? I know a lot of people use watches and heart rate zones, but unless you've had a proper test on the treadmill, blood tests and everything, it could be slightly out. So again, take it with a pinch of salt. It's there more as a guidance. So that's why we often hear the word running on feel. How do we feel? If we feel good, are we pushing ourselves? Are we a bit out of breath? If we are, then we're going too fast. Slow it down. You might have heard of the what's that slow running technique that a lot of people talk about? Maffetone. Yes, we often hear Maffetone. That's a similar type of thing, but that Maffetone, the heart rate, that's very much, you need a heart rate monitor, chest strap, monitor it closely. But again, that could vary. And a lot of people complain about the Maffetone that you have to go too slow. That may be a measure of our level of aerobic fitness, because as our aerobic fitness gets bigger, we get quicker at the same effort. Does that make sense? Hopefully it's making sense. Making sense to me here. And yes, Nicola, will come to that 5K and also the 5 favorite running shoes. Now, when it comes to going easy and building on that, I think it's essential for me anyway, is what I've noticed when I finish a marathon. I mean, last April, I finished the Manchester Marathon in 3 hours and 2 minutes, and the heart rate was at a particular level. What I found now, because obviously the fitness level is up there, what I found now as I've rested, even in May, before I got injured, the fitness level gone down, down, down. So whilst it's going down, the benefit if you have a good aerobic base is when you start the training, it comes back up very quickly, and then you can hopefully build on that. So hopefully I can run faster than 3 hours and 2 minutes in my next marathon, whenever that is, if I ever train for one and do one ever again. So not to panic if the aerobic base drops immediately after a race. That's normal. I believe that's normal. We need to have a rest and recover properly. So let me tackle first question here. Now, I'll do it in a particular order because I don't have the top 5 running shoes in my head right now, because I need to have a bit of a think and ponder. 5K race day tips, Nicola. Are you listening? Are you listening now, Nicola? Listen, right, 5K. Park runs, yeah, you can use park runs as a experience. Now, if you're running at Media City, I'm guessing Media City in Manchester, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think that's the only Media City in UK. I know there's lots of other media cities. I know in Hollywood there's a Media City. I don't think you'll be running in Hollywood, are you, Nicola? If you want to correct me, but BBC Media City, Manchester, that'll be a relatively flat course. It might be what I would call technical, so there might be some turns and corners. And so my tip there on turns and corners is don't go too fast on the corners. It's okay to slow down. I have seen people, there was one particular half marathon at Cambridge where we were coming to a 90-degree turn and a person ran into the wall. Yeah, I know. For a half marathon, I just slow down and go around the corner. So if there's any sharp turns, then do slow down. But the key thing with the 5K is the start of the race, but also the morning when you get up, make sure that you're hydrated. Hopefully you've got a routine and you've practiced this. I think obviously if you've coming it up next week, you can practice maybe a 5K this weekend. That would be a good practice, just in terms of getting up, what you eat, what you drink, because obviously you do need some food and drink beforehand, but certainly don't overeat and don't overdrink. And so again, hopefully you've worked out an amount of food and drink you can take before the race, because when you come to race on the 5K, you shouldn't be taking on any, I don't know what time are you going for, Nicola? I should have asked what's your current PB, 5K, what times do you go for? Because that can determine fluid intake as well, and also depends on how hot it is. But for me personally, I found 5K and even some 10Ks, I don't need to take on any fluids, certainly no gels. You know, it just, the time it takes for it to process through your body, it will have zero effect. I do know some people take a gel before the race starts or 20 minutes before. I personally don't. I just run on a particular pace strategy, and the pace strategy that I find works for me is what I call even pace, and it's basically don't sprint the first 800 meters. Yeah, it's very tempting to go all out on the first 800 meters, and I can assure you, if you're going out all out, first 800 meters, the last kilometer or even the middle kilometers, you'll be tiring, and then you'll flag a bit. So if your current 40 minutes running at that pace, that's, whilst you say it's slow, I mean, it's still relatively quick for a lot of people. And I'm sure you'll take some time off that. And good evening, special one. Good to see you here again. And I'll have to start calling you Jose. I don't know. But and I'll come back to the question from Run Muffy Run. How long do I sleep? How long do I sleep? So the key thing with 5K, make sure you've had the right food and drink in the morning before, if it is a morning race. If it is an evening one, sometimes it might even be a run through UK event, I'm guessing. Normally it's Media City. I am the special one. I'm liking the banter here. So the key thing here is that 7 p.m. Yes, I've ran a 5K at that time. I think it was called Chase the Sun. So it was coming towards sunset. The challenge I had with that, and this is me personally, Nicola, is that I've had a whole day of eating and drinking. So I need to ensure that I've had a couple of hours of not eating too much, because obviously if we eat, that's it, yeah, eat light during the day. I think you can eat okay in the morning, but it's more around the afternoon. And again, it's different for different people. You can take drinks and stuff, you know, an hour before or even immediately before, but I would make sure that that you're fully hydrated and ready to go. I think sometimes the evening ones can be great because it's the end of the day, so you know your body's fully charged and ready to go. So as long as you eat light, you should be fine. And I hope you have a cracking race next week, Nicola. Hopefully that's answered your question. As I mentioned, feel free to make a donation, and that'd be great. So hopefully it's been useful. So the special one says, how do you increase your VO2 max so much? Well, it depends what you mean by so much, because someone 40 VO2 max is really high, others is 60. So how long do I sleep? I think it was one of the questions from Run Muffy. I think that's a simple one for me to answer. So 5K tips. How long do I sleep? Well, it depends. Yes, it depends what's been happening the day before, how much has been going on, because my sleep is often impacted by what's been happening during the day. But I tend to try and get to bed early. I might not go to sleep immediately, but I do like to rest. So I'm a bit of an early bird, but again, early is relative to a lot of people. So I tend to head to bed for around 9 p.m. And sometimes if I am absolutely exhausted, tired, and I'm back home, sometimes I've even gone to bed at about 7. Obviously, going to bed early means I wake up early. So I tend to average between 7-8 hours sleep. And if I'm mega tired or whatever, and there's no need to get up either for a park run or a weekend or a long run, because that's the thing with Saturdays, park run day, up early. Sundays, long run day, up early. So it's very rare for me to have a lie-in. But if I do have that luxury, then I might just lie in bed and listening to some relaxing music. So I don't know whether that counts as sleep. But hopefully that's answered the question. And obviously the sleep, I think adding on whilst the night before race day, I think a lot of people talk about not getting much sleep, or they're very nervous, anxious, or excited. I mean, for me, I get excited, so often I can't really go to sleep straight if I'm excited. I don't worry about how much sleep I get the night before a race. So that it's more about the week before the race and how much sleep I get there. But yeah, it's all about getting what I feel is comfortable. So hopefully that's answered that question, Muffy. 5 favourite shoes, as that was the first question. Well, let me have a think of my 5 favourite running shoes. So I'm going to look down to the shoes I have at the moment. So I'm very much a Saucony. Oh, would you say, is there such a thing as a Saucony fanboy? I've tried all types of brands and I've loved all sorts of shoes. In fact, almost every shoe, even the ones that I don't get on with after a few weeks, every shoe that I've tried that's new, I've really enjoyed. And whether that's a new shoe thing, I don't know if you guys want to comment. Do you get the same feeling, you know, that smell of new shoes and it feels good and you feel all motivated? And certainly with some of the new Nike ones that I had over the years, they'd feel amazing, you know, especially with that new foam, you know, the Alpha Fly and also the Infinity Run. I loved those shoes. But in terms of my favourite shoes, I don't know if it's 5 or just the top 3. But for me, the Saucony ones work really well. But one that I don't have at the moment, but I really enjoyed for the fast and furious and eyeballs out, you know, 1 mile TTs, was the Reebok Float Ride Pro. I don't know if they do that anymore. And the thing was, it was a very minimalist shoe. It weighed under 200 grams, about 150 grams. It weighed literally nothing. It's like putting on a sock with a bit of traction underneath. But the retail price for those was £250. Thankfully, I've got it at half price. And I used that during lockdown whilst I was doing some TTs to mix it up a bit. So I'd say that's one of my favourite shoes, the Reebok Float Ride Pro. But I don't have that anymore. But for me, I do love the Saucony Endorphin Speed, the Speed 2 I've used. I've not used the Speed 3. But also the Saucony Ride, just the Ride. At the moment, I've got the Ride 15. And it works great for easy runs, sessions, all types. I used it for the London Marathon, and it was perfectly fine with that. You know, running a great time in that. And it's great for all types of runs, but the Endorphin Speed 2 worked really well as well. And that's the shoes that I got my Guinness World Record in, dressed as a hospital patient last year's London Marathon. So I do love those because you can punch in some really good speeds, but you can get speeds with the Ride 15 as well. So the third, and by no means least, is the Saucony Kinvara. And at the moment, I've got the 14 and they feel amazing. I'm more, as you may have worked out, I'm more of a non-carbon plated shoe. So I'd like to hear from you guys if you're carbon plated shoe fans or not. Let me know. But the Kinvara 14, before I got injured, I was absolutely loving them. And I still love them. I'm out now. I've started some walk runs and I use the Kinvara. There is a sole insert I've used that's been provided by the podiatrist. So that's to help with my Achilles whilst they continue to rehab. But the Kinvara 14, love them. I have seen, because I tend to prefer more minimal type shoes, and I have tried the 5K, 10K one that Nike have. The name escapes me at the moment, so if anyone's watching knows the name of that Nike. I did like that, but I just found it, the foam for me, the Nike foam is too squidgy. I like something that gives a bit of a return. And one that I used to use that I don't use at the moment now is the Saucony Fast Witch. I think it was a 9. And with those pair, I did run a PB 10K of around 37 minutes 50 a couple of years back in that shoe. And I absolutely love it. As I say, I'm not more of a carbon plate, but I have seen now that Saucony have released an ultra specialist lightweight shoe for short distances. And no surprise that other brands are now jumping on that wagon. I did predict in my yearly predictions, I did predict, maybe this is why I'm the one of the special ones. We're all special in some way, aren't we? Is that Hoka releasing, I can't remember the name of the shoe, but they're releasing a minimal shoe as well, non-carbon plated, and they sell it as for something for shorter distances. So maybe they've seen that Nike are doing well with their 5K, 10K shoe that has no carbon plate, just a little bit of foam. very minimal. But whilst I enjoyed it, personally, I couldn't justify the £120 because I tend to go for discount shoes. So all those shoes I mentioned, my favourite ones, I've all got discounted, some of them over 50% discount. So they may not be the latest, greatest, but they work for me. And that's how I tend to look at my shoes. So hopefully that's answered that question. And we're ticking along nicely here. So I was just going to go into the, and I'll talk about the how do I improve VO2 max so much. I'll come back to that one. And oh, Muffy said, do I get nervous before a race? I did mention when you're talking about sleep, for me, sleep and race days, a lot of people say they don't get much sleep. I wouldn't say I'll get nervous. I get excited, especially certain races. You know, I certainly got excited with the England Masters one, whether it be the 10K, a half marathon. I found those very exciting. And some of the nights I wouldn't really get any sleep at all. But hey, you know, just go with it. I don't make a big deal of it. You know, running a 5K with no sleep or 10K no sleep, you know, I think a lot of us do that. So I don't make a big deal of it because I'm making sure that the build up towards it works that way. And so hopefully with that, welcome, Mac, and catch one stream during tomorrow's run. Yeah, absolutely, Mac. And thank you for tuning in at this time. So by all means, I'm going to go through right now in terms of before and after every run, because I think this is essential in terms of what some people take for granted, some people don't do. I was quite surprised when I look at some other YouTubers, they post these videos and the comments that go in there. I find it quite shocking how many people miss the basics, whether it's because I've had professional coaches, and to me, it's all basic common sense. You know, there was one video, how to run a faster 5K without any training. And to save you watching that video, it's to do a dynamic warm-up. That's it. Yeah, you most people, when they turn up for a park run, don't do any form of warm-up. They just turn up and run. So if you haven't warmed up correctly and you want to go faster and beat your PB, the dynamic warm-up is essential. And I've always done that for an event. And the amount of warm-up that you do depends on the distance of the race. So if I'm doing a marathon, it'll be mainly just leg swings, squats, and all that type of stuff. I won't be running round and round and round, warming up my legs and muscles. I will do that for 5Ks, 10Ks, and a little bit for a half marathon, but I won't do that for a marathon. So dynamic warm-up is essential for me, and that's what I do before every run. And that was one of the things I was missing when I was injured, was just doing, you know, the dynamic warm-ups, you know, leg swings, the crossovers, the, you know, knee twists. I have my own names for those things, but basically a dynamic warm-up. You can do whatever dynamic warm-up works for you. A lot of people use the first kilometre of a marathon as part of their warm-up, so they start off slowly, and it's always essential to start off slowly anyway in a marathon. But if you are going for a sub 2 hours 10, then you might want to do some other form of warm-up to ensure that you can start at the right pace for that. But how many of you watching are running sub 2 hours 10 marathons? Let me know in the comments below. Yeah, so that's my tip in terms of before. After the actual event or run, one of the first things I do is I make sure I get fully hydrated afterwards. Now, during the race, again, depending on the distance, and I know that Nicola asked about her 5K coming up, that I don't hydrate during a 5K, but I will hydrate at the end of a 5K. Essential for me. Take the hydration in. Drink, lots of stuff. Food, stretches. Always do my static stretches at the end of a run, always, to stretch out the calves, quads, hips, back, all that type of stuff. So I'll do my static stretches. So you may, hopefully you've worked out the differences. So before a run is dynamic warm-up, not static stretches. Again, there's a lot of people do static stretches before a run, which is not a good idea because your muscles haven't warmed up. And if you do a static stretch, there is the potential you might pull a muscle doing that. I do see a lot of people in gyms coming straight in and doing static stretches now, and they all look fine. A lot of them are much, much younger than me, probably a third of my age, and maybe they can get away with it, but I certainly couldn't get away with it. So I need to do my dynamic warm-ups, and then it's the static stretches at the end. So, you know, standard pulling the legs, stretching the calves, quads, and all that type of stuff. So that's what I do before and after. So the big question: how do you get VO2 max up so high? So I'm guessing your meaning is so high 60. So my VO2 max, I think at the moment it's 58, and that's after quite a few weeks, nearly 40 days, 40 nights. How long is that? Is that's over like 5 weeks? Yeah, 5 to 6 weeks of zero running, just a bit of walking. So yes, the VO2 max has gone down since where it was, but it almost goes back to what I was saying at the beginning about building a base. And but also the thing with what I found, and a lot of people may know this, is the watches, the VO2 max that's shown on your watch is not necessarily what your true VO2 max is. Because obviously to get the correct VO2 max measurement, you need to do blood tests and run on a treadmill. So it's all simulated in a lab, etc., etc. So we use proper science. These things are great, but they're there just as guidance. So if you can see the time in terms of it's 8:37, so it's proper live here. These ones are good indications. Sometimes it's close, not so close, but I would use that. And I do know that Garmin do say, if you read the small print, they do say it is purely for guidance. And that's why if you're running to heart rates and training zones, I would say it's almost essential that you have a lab test before, and go to a professional who get on the treadmill, do the oxygen, all that breathing test and so on, and then the blood tests out the ear. So they work out what your lactate thresholds are, and then work from that, and that will determine your current VO2 max. But in terms of building up, the reason why I mentioned the watch is there are some people who've worked out the tricks to build up the number on here. That's why it's never, well, I say never. That's why often it's not totally true, is that what it does like is a lot of zone 2 or high-end zone 2, and sometimes even into the bottom end of what it has as zone 3. So if you're doing a number of those runs to a particular time, I don't know what times these people are saying where they try and spoof the watch, that knocks it up a notch or two, and it can work for a short while, but eventually it will know that you're not that fit. So if your heart rate rockets up in those zones, then it knows that your VO2 is lower, so it then does adjust itself. But it's really just building the base, as I was saying earlier, when I talked about, and this is what, to run faster for longer and not tiring, is building the base. You build the base and the VO2 max goes up with that. Because if we break down what VO2 max actually is how transporting oxygen and the amount of oxygen that we can transport by having a high aerobic base, as the word implies, aerobic oxygen, we are transporting more oxygen through that. So hopefully that's answered that question. I know you've quickly come in with another question. Hope you're making some donations there. As I said, for those who are watching and those who've come in halfway, this is all in aid for the Prevent Breast Cancer, as I hold this up, as I'm looking over the top. Prevent Breast Cancer, walk in for a future free from breast cancer. So for the Camino de Santiago, this is coming up in end of September, beginning of October. And I would dearly love for you guys to make a donation. There's a link in the description, and there's also a link in this chat here. So do I do any upper strength work? Yes. Interesting enough, we're all lazy with any form of strength work. I think when I've spoke with a lot of professionals, certainly when I was speaking with a podiatrist and my physio, and also I've spoken with other professionals in different types of stuff, they say the most common thing for runners is they think they can get faster by just running. Now, which is true to a point, but to get faster again, if you look at a lot of the elites, they will all hands down say if you do strength training, it adds that bit more. And also with strength training, it helps with, as I said, the strength of your body. For me, I think I was probably lacking in certain strength. I did overdo it on the walks. So I'd edged over, doing that 55K walk 13.5 hours. My body just couldn't take that. It was too long. I was on my feet for too long, moving too long, whilst it was slower. And that's what tipped over the both Achilles over that next couple of weeks. So I hadn't, prepared for that. Now I'm doing a lot of strength work, heel drops. That helped with the rehab. And the podiatrist did say that the recovery for me was super quick based on me following what he suggested at basically to the letter. So I was following it to the letter. And what I can say is that I'll probably be wrapping this up in the next sort of 10 minutes because as you might hear from my voice, and I caught a bit of a buggette. So I wasn't going to come on and do this because I thought I'm feeling too sick. But I thought, it's only half an hour, 40 minutes. And I don't like letting people down. So if that's not worth a donation, then please do make a donation on there. So my throat is already beginning to ache a bit, but I will answer. Yeah, when you say you're lazy with upper body, I think most runners are. And also, I think there's also a balance. You might have seen some runners where they talk about where there's certain type of athletes and they're quite big up top and different body shapes, probably come from bodybuilding background and have obviously a lot more body strength up the top. But it's getting the balance of building body strength with not having too much up here. And obviously, if we have to carry more, then that can have an impact on our running fitness as well. But we're all lazy with upper body. But I guess for me, some of the key things I do love my rowing machine in the gym. So that works out the whole body though. So the rowing works on my upper body, back, but also works on my legs, works on my quads and calves. So I find that as a whole body experience. So I've been doing a lot of rowing. And I have noticed that my tone of muscles of upper body has increased over the past 6 weeks because I've been increasing the training on the rower. So I guess I feel a lot stronger up here. And what's interesting is when I did start last week, my walk runs, is I did feel stronger and fitter. And it was so tempting just to run the whole 3K, 4K that I had. But no, it said 30 minutes, easy walk and jog. So I need to keep it tempered or keep control of that in other words. So I know I'm feeling a lot stronger. I will continue doing that rowing, but I don't do any specific weights or anything like that. I have got a plan where I've been working with a physio where I'll start doing some weights, but it's not that much. So things like, I think there's I can't remember, it's Russian deadlift, Bulgarian deadlift, Hungarian deadlift, whatever it's called. I might start doing some of that. That'll help build the strength up here, but also the back. I think the back is one of the essential parts of our body, and but also working on the whole. We talk about the elastic free speed, which I've seen a video on where if you start doing some skipping, that helps build the calves and the Achilles strength, and that helps you give you free speed. But what that is the fascia that we have, or fascia. Again, I think in terms of how people pronounce it, but Fascia. So the fascia runs throughout the whole of our body and how we can work that. And I have had a guest on here who works on, running with the whole body and using our natural elasticity of how we run and pronate and using that natural elasticity to work through that. So hopefully that's answered that question in terms of upper body strength. But if you look at most runners, I do recall someone having an event where they say, oh, well, we're going to meet up with some runners. And underneath it said, you can spot all the runners because they're all sort of thin on top, they're a bit lighter up top. So that's one way of seeing that you've got people who specialize in running. But again, having done triathlon, swimming is good for upper body strength, I would say. And I have done some of that, but for me, a pool isn't easily accessible, which is one of the reasons why I dropped out of doing triathlons. I can't get to a pool easily. I 100% can't get to open water swim. I don't fancy swimming in the River Severn here locally because the current is quite fast. And also, I'm not too sure about the pollution. You only need to read the local news here in the UK, the amount of sewage that's dumped in various rivers. So for my own health, obviously I'm not feeling well now, so I think I'd probably be even more ill if I went into a river. So the lakes and wherever are not nearby for me, so that's why I had to drop the triathlon, because I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the 70.3, and I'm sure maybe one day I might come back and do a triathlon. But swimming, rowing, those are my two key things that help with upper body strength, but also help build the aerobic base, and also on that type of stuff. And who knows, because I do recall the highest I had my VO2 max, whether it was spoofed or working or not, but when we were in lockdown, I did do a video where it went up to 65. I didn't produce a video after that because it still went up again. I did get a recording of 66. I can't recall whether it went up to 69, but at that time, that was when I was doing a lot of cycling because all the running races were cancelled. So I went, I had a bike and just went out around London, Essex, doing lots of bike rides. And I mean, long bike rides, which probably concurs with my analogy of doing the base. And, where one day I cycled over 200 miles unaided. So got up early, got up at 4 a.m. and cycled 204 miles, I think, in total. And I think that combined with the running, whilst I was doing my triathlon training, because there was a triathlon race that I did enter in the summer that year during the lockdowns, or it came out of lockdown and then we had that race. So it was a local race in North Yorkshire. My first ever, whilst it wasn't an Ironman branded 70.3, it was equivalent-ish at that distance. But I felt super strong. And when I came to the run at the end, because my VO2 was so high, I was literally passing everybody. So I think cycling can really help in terms of build that VO2 max. But obviously with cycling, it doesn't build your upper body strength. So it's getting a combination: swimming, cycling, running, rowing, all that type of stuff. So thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to wind up. As I said, this is all in aid of Prevent Breast Cancer, Camino de Santiago 2023, where I am targeting, fingers crossed, that my injury I'll rehab correctly. And I'm really appreciative of those of you who came online live watching this and joining in with us. And if you are watching it on replay, then please do, leave a question in there. Thumbs up, subscribe, leave a donation to Prevent Breast Cancer. And thank you so much for being here. I've loved chatting. Even though it's me talking, it's these things happen. They're brought here to challenge us, and I just carry on fighting through. Maybe that's why I've got a bit of resilience, shall we say. So I've managed to talk for over 40 minutes, almost non-stop. And despite having a sore throat, and I think it is quite hot. So I'm going to be taking some night nurse and have a damn good sleep. So I'll be heading to bed right now. So there you go, 9 o'clock. So there you go, Muffy. That's my routine of going to bed. Thank you for those questions. 5 favorite run shoes. Well, I showed you my top 3, which is a Saucony Ride 15, Endorphin Speed 2, and the Kinvara 14. I've loved all the Kinvaras. I've ran through all the Kinvara systems. 5K tips. Good luck to you, Nicola, at the Media City with your 5K run. Let us know in the comments how it goes in future videos. Leave it in there. I'd love to hear from you. How long I sleep? Between 7 and 8 hours. Sometimes I like to do a bit more. And the VO2 max. Way to increase it. Build your base. Easy runs. Chatty runs. Hence why we call this the Chatty Adventures. Thank you all so much. Take care. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I always like to do a good stream. So thank you so much for being here live right now. It's greatly appreciated and helps in more ways than you can imagine. Thank you.